Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how are you doing, mate?
Mate, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, like enjoying life. This is so I should be coming to you with extra clarity, extra audio because we've got a new mic today. It's just out of shot, but it is there. So I can't wait to get slated in the comments how quiet I am or
Yeah,
anything like that. But yeah, you've got my velvet tones in full
beautiful.
effect. Yeah, we're investing here,
Yeah,
investing
man,
on the Villa Filler podcast. Only the best for you guys,
that's what we
the
do.
listeners that deserve these, as I said, these dulcet tones in their truest quality. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This feels like we're making a step up in terms of quality. You don't have to listen to the crappy AirPods sound anymore.
But I can still see them
Yeah, oh, they're still there.
flexing,
Got to flex them,
flexing as
obviously. I
always.
still got to flex.
Of course, bro. Of course, I'm with you on that one. And obviously, Dan, this is for our general listeners. Obviously, we'd first of all just like to thank you for once again tuning into the Villa Filler because it's something we didn't actually address in the last podcast, Dan. But on Apple Podcasts,
Oh
sports
yeah.
news shows, we're number one, which is pretty mental. Especially because as well, like
Oh,
in terms of the output of the podcast, what you guys are mainly watching on now is YouTube. That's kind of what we push. Obviously, we put the podcast out on all podcast providers, but it's not something. I think we try to push for the YouTube more in terms of getting listeners and stuff. So it's quite amazing to see that even while we're, our full focus is on this platform, that you guys are so engaged on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, stuff like that. So one thing I will say before we get into it is, if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, please leave a review because that really helps out in terms of the rating as well. So if you enjoy what Dan and I are saying, leave a 5-star review, whatever you feel. Just let us know that you're enjoying the podcast because it means a lot and it helps us out when we're putting these out really as well. And yeah, this one as well, to kind of appeal to a different audience, which we engaged a lot with in the last podcast, Dan. Leeds United. Now listen, we were well beaten by Leeds. Let's get that out of the way first of all, Dan. But there was one or two comments in the comment section. Now they don't usually rub me off the wrong way, and that can be taken out of context. But you know,
yeah.
I'm usually quite thick-skinned when it comes to the comments. Things don't really bother me. There's been instances where I've definitely said something and I've had people slate me in the comments. That's fine. That's part of the business. I'm putting myself out there. Dan's putting himself out there. We expect that. But we spent a good 10 minutes on the last episode of the Villa Filler, Dan. I don't want to say singing the praises, but we were definitely very complimentary to Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United's performance against Aston Villa the other night. Now, we're back doing this podcast a bit sooner than we would have liked because there were one or two comments in that video, Dan, which we felt like we had to address right now because, as I said, we were quite complimentary of Leeds, but that isn't enough for these Leeds fans, is it, Dan?
No, well, look, I think this is perhaps a little bit of a deeper autopsy of what went down on the night and just really clarifying our stance, because now I think we forged a rivalry with Newcastle United with the
Yeah,
sub on the time banner and all that stuff in the Holte end, and it still goes on today. Like I have mates that are Newcastle fans. You mentioned they're Villa fans, and they still they'll never forget that. And the sum of the time and the Anton Deck comments and all that sort of stuff that we gave them from the whole 10 when we relegated them and all that sort of stuff. And they still have, and now whenever we play Newcastle, there is that little bit more edge. Like I remember when we played them in the Championship, especially, and when we were relegated for the first season, and the games were really quite hostile. And now with Leeds, given everything that went down in all those games that we played against them in the Championship, we now have that again. And we've sort of forged a rivalry mainly out of the fans, and like
yeah,
just between the fans, and I think now the game went down the other night. Villa fans were gutted to lose to Leeds. I think it's fair to say I saw a lot
yeah.
of people comments saying like a loss was coming back, but God, didn't want it to be Leeds, and I completely get that. Villa fans, Leeds fans, very happy to get one over on us. I'm sure. But yeah, I just want to sort of clarify my stance on Bielsa and Leeds, and hopefully I think we'll mirror sort of the same thing, mate, because they're a manager and a side that I have a lot of respect for, and I felt like we said that enough in the last podcast, but clearly not. Clearly not.
No, because the fact that we're here even addressing this, as I say, most of these comments generally don't get my back up, but I don't particularly want to have to hop on a podcast with Dan after a defeat and wax lyrical about a player, a group of players or whatever, if I don't believe it, because that's disingenuous. Me and Dan come on this podcast, we give our opinions, we lay down facts, we lay down our opinions, and that's how we form our opinions of players, football teams, stuff like that. And again, in the podcast, we said so many times how the job that Bielsa has done is genuinely quite remarkable. And listen, Dan, before I go off on a tangent, we'll get into the comments. You've got them up on your laptop right now. So first one, Dan, what have we got? Because and as well, just before we do get into this, there are a handful of Leeds fans in the comments who were quite complimentary of the podcast and quite complimentary of us actually complimenting Leeds, which is great because that's what we did. But there are a few of you guys who may have missed the mark. So this is for all you Leeds fans up in West Yorkshire. Dan, let's get the first comment underway.
Yeah. So look, man, we had this is the one. So it was actually just an hour ago, actually, and this is a point that I often enjoy making about Leeds. It's from Harry Cox. Yeah, I was about to say Henry Cox. Harry Cox. Why isn't the Leeds team the same quality as yours? I would say they're of a pretty similar level. I know this is just talking about the quality of starting 11 on the pitch. And now I'm not being funny. I like a lot of Leeds players. I think they have a lot of good players. And again, mate, I feel honestly, this whole podcast is going to feel like a broken record because this is again something I said in the last podcast. But Bielsa makes that team more than a sum of its parts. And I said this to you after we came on air. I think if you put that 11 in the hands of a Scott Parker, or any really most other managers in the Premier League, I might even include Dean in that bracket. Like they wouldn't be able to do what Bielsa has done.
Yeah,
they wouldn't be able to do what Bielsa has done. Like that team, if you take so many of the players in isolation, look, I'm not saying there's a lot of good players in there, a lot of players that I admire, and even from when they're in the Championship, you only have to look at how desperate Brighton were to keep hold of Ben White to see that, there truly are some stars in there. And look, whilst Villa fans will hate to see the day that we give Bamford his fair dues, you have to respect the performance that he put in the other night. But look, the 11, our midfield is one of the best outside the top 6.
Yeah,
on paper. If you're looking at Grealish, Douglas Luiz, Barkley, and John McGinn, then there's I don't think you can get that pound for pound quality much. Really, many other teams. I think it's really good, and this is what I mean. Bielsa is why this team is a success. It's the difference and his the uniqueness of his coaching style that makes this team work. I don't think personally, pound for pound, on paper, their 11 is on the same standard as ours. I don't think they have a player anywhere near as good as Jack Grealish.
No, of course not. And I think that's ultimately where that the kind of comparisons come from. If you're going man for man, you've got Tyrone Mings, England international. They brought in Koch at centre back, who's given away 3 penalties so far this season. And look, he's played in the Bundesliga. Bundesliga is a bit different to the Premier League, without going full Dan Bardell there and saying this isn't Bundesliga. But no, there's so many players where you look at, Douglas Luiz, Brazilian international, John McGinn, Scottish international. He's been man of the match for their past 2 games in a row, I believe. Jack Grealish, obviously, we all know about Jack Grealish in England. He should be playing more. Even Leeds fans were admitting that during the international break. But what I will say is about, and again, this is mainly about Bielsa. You've just got to look at the changes that Bielsa made to his starting 11 coming into this game when you got someone like Calvin Phillips out injured, stuff like that. Scrooge came in straight away. Now, obviously, he got brought off because he was on a yellow card. But when they brought on, I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head for the life of me. The lad they brought on in the midfield, obviously was out of necessity.
I can't remember the guy's name. I can't remember. Yeah, well, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. You don't.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at the Leeds bench and you're like,
Who?
not exactly household names.
Like with no disrespect intended whatsoever, and with Stewie, I think they expected Villa to play onto them more. And look, we're gonna get a bit more in depth on the game in this podcast, because I feel like we have to address it in terms of where we stand with Bielsa and with the players and so on. And with who they brought on in midfield, they suddenly realised after that first 20 minutes, they didn't need a holding midfielder. And someone actually addressed this in the comments. So shout out to you if that was you. We were sitting far deeper, and obviously we were playing with two sitters in McGinn and Louise anyway. So they didn't need to have Stewish sat in front of the back four protecting him, because Villa weren't that much of a threat to them. That was, and in terms of game management, you said it on the last podcast, Dan, we're screaming on our sofas at the moment for Dean Smith to make a substitution. And the difference there is Bielsa's seen something that isn't quite working, obviously, with Struich being on the yellow card. He's then brought on a player and has changed the system mid-game. And the players can respond to that as well. We don't see that kind of tactical fluidity with Villa. And I think that's fair to say. So there we go. 1 point to Bielsa already. We've said something complimentary about Bielsa. We should keep a tally. And then as well, in terms of Matty Cash. Now, Matty Cash has been nothing short of phenomenal since he's come in. Let's not get this twisted. And for the first half, very much man of the match. Again, something we said in the last podcast. Can't believe we're addressing a podcast we put out only 2 days ago, but here we are. The second half, Cash really struggled. That was through no fault of his own. Bielsa had identified that Trezeguet, as hard as he has been working recently, wasn't tracking back as much and just wasn't putting the work in. And ultimately, that's where the substitution of Traore comes in. I did question that in the last podcast, but if he's not working hard enough, he's not doing his job. Okay, pull him off, put Traore on, see what he can do. Fair enough. Either way, having a fullback as attacking as Alioski, because Alioski's not a fullback, Dan. He's a winger. He's been converted there. His job is always to get up the pitch. And then with someone who's in, red hot form, like Jack Harrison on him, it was 2-on-1 for Cash all evening. And again, you got to give credit to Bielsa for identifying that and causing an overload in one of Villa's possibly strongest positions. Because if you look on the right-hand side, Rodrigo played on that wing, and it may have been Dallas that played right back. Obviously, Luke Ayling is generally that option there, but again, another point to Bielsa. He moved the more mobile centre half, right back into centre half to accommodate for Ollie Watkins, because we all know how good he was. And again, that proves to be a masterstroke from Bielsa. We're on 4 points for Bielsa here. Like, we've said 4 amazing things about Bielsa here, Dan. Whilst on paper, you would assume that left-hand side, before I got diverted by myself there, that left-hand side in Matt Targett is probably where you're going to look to get a bit more joy than Matty Cash. He didn't have Ayling at right back, so that is ultimately why we didn't really see him target that left-hand side too much. I mean, Rodrigo still caused plenty of problems. That front three was like Brazil 2014 interchanging, man. Like, you got Joe and Neymar swapping there. Again, another great thing I'm saying about Leeds, I want you guys to hear, we're not just bitter, brummies about this. We're not sat here sulking. We said on the podcast, Leeds were better in the second half. And I mean, that's how it went. I've gone on a big rant there, Dan. We've got more comments to address, obviously, but there's my thoughts on it. Marcelo Bielsa, masterclass. You've heard it here on the Villa Filler.
Yeah, for sure, man.
That's all I got to say on that, man.
No, look, like I'm a big fan of. I love my Spanish football. I love Bielsa's impact. I mean, the one thing. I love his tactical versatility, and you've discussed it, Mehmet. Like, what made Bielsa famous was his sort of trademark. He played a 3-3-1-3 formation, which is what he's played throughout the majority of his career. Did wonders with it with the Chilean national team. Played it with Argentina, Marseille as well. I think he played it there, and we've seen him play it at times with Leeds. Like, he's played on the whole with a 4-1-4-1, but if you look at Leeds' championship games, when they come up against teams who play two strikers. They do play or have played a 3-3-1-3. Now we haven't seen this as much in the Premier League. I don't think with the quality in Leeds 11 that you could necessarily go and come into the Premier League first season and start playing a 3-3-1-3, like, you know, inverted wing backs, like some crazy like chemistry experiment on Football Manager. Like, it doesn't work. They have been playing the 4-1-4-1. Calvin Phillips can drop into that centre back. I love that. I love unique managers. I love managers, and you only have to look at the managers that he has inspired. Gerardo Martino, Mauricio Pochettino, Diego Simeone, Matias Almeida, Santiago Solari, Pep Guardiola, Marcelo Bielsa. It just goes on and on and on. Jorge Sampaoli, who's in charge of Sevilla, never actually played for Bielsa. Correct me on that in the comments, but just loves the guy. And everything that you watch Sevilla, and like you'd mistake them for being a Bielsa side. I love the guy. It's great what he's doing. I love that Leeds are back in the Premier League. I think they should be a Premier League team. I love that we have this kind of animosity, and it's just another game to look forward to. And they beat us fair and square on the day. Absolutely fair and square. And, you know, there's Sean in the comments who says he's a Leeds fan. And he said this, mate, I'll read it out to you. He said, your midfield is so strong. Don't see you anywhere near relegation. Long way to go for it, but see us both and yourselves anywhere between 9th and 12th-ish. Hopefully, anyway, that would be an amazing first season for us. You're right about Bielsa squeezing the most out of his players, not just Bamford, but the likes of Dallas, Ayling and Click. Watching them week in, week out still shocks me with the levels he's getting out some of these players who, before he came in, I'd been more than happy to move on. And I think all that does, mate, and that's a Leeds fan, which is echoing all the sentiments that we've said. Tactically, we weren't on the same level as them, but Bielsa's a supreme level manager. I don't think it's a slight on Dean Smith to say that tactically he was slightly out of his depth at this man. You know, this is, as I was just saying, a man that Pep Guardiola hails, has his influence. You only saw that when they met on the touchline when City played Leeds a couple of weeks ago, how happy those two were to see each other and to be reunited. And you can see the admiration in Pep. Leeds tactically outclassed us on the day. I think that's fair to say, and unfortunately for Dean and for all the great things he's done, he's got a little way to go before he can dine at that top table of elite managers who can turn games on its head. I mean, we're a long way from seeing plucky old Warsaw Dino operate a 3-3-1-3, a 3-1-3-3, and so yeah, I don't think it's a slight on Dean. Marcelo Bielsa is a fantastic manager. He's a character I very much admire. Leeds plays some football I very much admire. I don't want to admire it too often at Villa Park. I don't want to admire it too often on this podcast. But here we are. We had to come on this and just make these points, mate, because I feel they did get missed out a little bit. But I think I think now we should have appeased the Leeds fans. And I think those are our true sentiments. I'd like to sort of, it's easy to look at that game and talk Leeds, but let's talk Villa.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what did you think we did well? What didn't you think we did well? What was like? Obviously, you were in a position better than 99% of the population, mate, being there yourself. So taking Leeds out of it, where did you think we went wrong in that one?
Well, again, kind of addressing the game, Dan, I think I did mention this on the other podcast. Villa started slow. Now, that wasn't surprising looking at the Leicester game, because, again, we started slow there. We took our time. It was mainly around the kind of 25-minute mark where you saw the Grealish shot cleared off the line by Ayling again. Look at me, I'm complimenting Ayling again. Wow, this is 6 points to Leeds. But no, you know, opportunities like that. To begin with, Villa, I think, it was a classic instance of how do we, you know, we have to beat the press somehow. So we're going to play long. And obviously we're in this really weird time where there's no such thing as home advantage, really. So, you know, Leeds can come to Villa Park with no one but me sat in the stands, and play the way they do at Ellen Road, like, you know, when they've got 30,000 fans there, because there isn't that kind of animosity around the area in Villa Park. And Villa did struggle to beat the press all night, and it was non-existent in the second half. The one thing that surprised me the most was how persistent we were in just playing the long ball over. You know, I mean, there's not many ways you can beat a press as aggressive as that, Dan. We all know that. But sometimes it just takes someone in the midfield to be extremely composed, go, you know, I really want the ball. I'm gonna show for it. I'm gonna really embrace being in possession. And look, I'm not going to sit here again and bash Douglas Luiz or John McGinn or anyone like that either, because the performance wasn't bad. I think that's where I think things are getting kind of misconstrued, especially with the Leeds fans. Whilst we didn't deserve to win the game, especially when Bamford scores two beautiful goals as he did for his second and third. But Villa, they didn't do enough to win the game, but I don't feel like they deserve to lose the game. Watkins was constantly coming deep to try and bring Villa forward, which is, it's great to see him take that kind of initiative. But it was clear as day that he was isolated so much on the evening. And at times, Trezeguet kind of looked like a lost puppy and didn't really know where he needed to be. And it was definitely, I wouldn't say our worst performance of the season, because obviously, you know, we lost to Stoke, but that was a third string side essentially. But it's one of them ones where on the night, if it goes your way, like it did against Leicester, I think we did do enough to edge it. But if that was a James Maddison who scored Ross Barkley's goal, I don't think you can be too mad in how that game goes. And look, it was a game of fine margins. I've looked at the penalty again. As I say, I'd only seen it the one time after watching it live. And there's contacts, but again, it's that kind of classic. And I hate the fact that I even have to say this, Dan, but you know, Grealish he's looking for the penalty there. He very much had the opportunity to pull the trigger, and he just didn't. But there was a few instances as well where Villa actually did set traps pretty well, which is, you know, something classic that Dean likes to talk about. There was a few instances where we did manage to pick up on one or two loose balls from Ayling, from Dallas, and Villa would find themselves in that final third. Again, this was mainly in the first half. And that ultimately, I think that's where, you know, Villa could have won the game. You've got to take advantage of these opportunities. Ollie was very isolated. Again, I think that was Ayling was pretty much man marking him. And I mean, we've all seen what happens at the very, very top when, you know, you man mark an elite player like Messi. If you're looking at the classics like Bayern versus Barca, Jerome Boateng trying to man mark Messi, it never works. Obviously, Ollie Watkins is no Messi, but when you've got a player who's going to follow you anywhere, it's on, you know, Trezeguet and Grealish and McGinn to make them runs and to exploit the space. But, you know, here we are. Villa didn't manage to do that. The big thing in the second half, Dan, was, again, as I kind of alluded to earlier, not having... Villa weren't able to win the ball back, and they didn't look like they wanted to win the ball back. I think at 1-0, Villa were happy to kind of just see the game out and hope to win it with a set piece, because we didn't look like getting back in it at all. And then when Bamford scores an absolute screamer, as he does for the second one, and there's nothing you can do about it, your confidence just goes, doesn't it? I mean, we've all experienced it playing Sunday League, playing with your mates or whatever. When there's something that's just out of your control and there's nothing you can do about it, it's almost like, okay, well, what's the point? And that's absolutely not the attitude to take. I'm not endorsing that by any means, because you want your players to stand up and be counted for. And I think that attitude was personified in the third goal, because you have four men around Bamford. Now, he turned into Thierry Henry there. The fact he was so nonchalantly able to dance around and open his body up and just bend it in like he does. The technique is fantastic and unprecedented from Patrick Bamford. I think even Patrick Bamford would agree with that. But there's no situation in the world where you have four men around a striker. Does the striker go and score?
It was disappointing, mate, wasn't it? Let's be real. And look, like, we didn't do enough to stop Leeds and disrupt that rhythm of theirs. I think you need to foul more.
Yeah,
like is a really Pep way. Like, you know, you want to talk Pep Bielsa, like, foul. Like, you watch City, and City, like, are a dirty team. Anytime, like, if you have a team get the ball in a position to counteract City, go and watch any City game at any point in the last 3 years. As soon as a side gets on the ball in a position to counteract City, they're like, bang, they're taking that 5 seconds, 10 seconds to foul them. Villa, like Leeds, committed more fouls on Villa than they did. And look, I'm not saying you need to like be out to injure players, but look, disrupt that rhythm. Do what the top teams do. Like professional fouls are a key part of any top manager, any top side setup. You know, if you're naive to think any differently. I don't think we did enough of that. But look, we conceded in, and we were put in a position which we hadn't been in 9 Premier League matches. That's the first time, you know, when they go 1-0 up, that's the first time we'd been a goal like trailing in a Premier League in 9 games, which crazy. Like, can any other side boast that in the same period of time? Probably not. Like that was our first defeat in those 9 games, obviously, of which we'd won 6. And so look, like it's really not too much to worry about. Dean said himself that we probably got away with a 3-0, and I can agree with that. I think there were certainly chances where Leeds, you know, you sort of come away thinking, wow, okay, like, you know, Emmy's made a couple of decent saves and stuff like that, where you think, wow, okay, Leeds could be like, you know, 4-5 up here. But look, like, if that chance goes in the first half and Aileen clears it off the line, if Grealish's mazy run in the second half goes in, the game is so different, and those were fine margins. And anything can happen then. You know, if you put Villa in a winning scenario, which is all we've been in those 9 games, is either level or winning, then we approach the game with a far different mentality and potentially get a completely different result. But mate, I'm talking complete if, buts, and maybes. What actually went out was completely deserved. Leeds deservedly came away with a 3-0 win. And we await a response, and that's what I think is important. Look, if we're going to go 5 games in this Premier League season, losing once every time, then that is fine by me.
Yeah.
Like, I would take that. I would snap your right arm for that right now. Like that, yeah, that would be brilliant. It would, like, mate, I just want this Villa team now. It's important that we show a bit of resolve, that we show some tactical nous, because we've got some tough games going up. And we just don't allow those same mistakes to happen again. We know now what Leeds can do to us. We have to go back to Ellen Road in the away leg and show that we can take it to them, show that we can play on their level, show that we've learned from the mistakes that we made last time, and really, really give them a game. And I think that's important. That'll be one that I think a lot of Villa fans are looking forward to. Certainly I'm looking forward to. And the Villa should be too, because, you know, we have a lot of wrongs to put right there. And but look, in terms of complaints on the day, I actually don't have very many for Villa. I think we would just simply be by the better side.
Absolutely. That's probably the best note to end this on, Dan. We've been more than fair in this podcast. I felt... so hopefully for all you Leeds fans who will undoubtedly watch this, because you'll see the thumbnail.
Thanks for the views, guys. Thanks.
We appreciate that. You'll see the title, you'll see the thumbnail, you're in the tags, so you're going to see it. You found the last one pretty well. So, you know, fair play, you guys. You guys are relentless. You know, never heard of the term sore winners before, but here we are on the Villa Filler podcast. Dan, it's been a pleasure as always. Right? Our Southampton preview will be out within the next few days, which we're about to record. So if you see us wearing the same clothes, that's why. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit the like button, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more Aston Villa content. The season's going on, the pods are coming thick and fast, and we hope you guys enjoy. Up the Villa. It's the main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang. Chester. He's the main leader of the gang now. Chester.